back in the shop. Events of the last few weeks have been, well, not the best for the things I want to do. But I have a bunch of 572 stuff I need to kind of push my way through. And I'm going to do something I swore up and down I'd never do. And that's basically help out a dealer using my own stock, because sometimes it's hard to get your stuff back. And in this case, the saw's been sitting here for a while waiting for the right parts, and they're just not forthcoming from what I can tell. So I need to move it out of the way because I have another 572 to build. This one right here, I'm not sure exactly how bad it is, but I'm hoping it's just a bearing, so I can replace that pretty quick. And then I can get back to the things that I prefer to do. I want to get back to my 575s and stuff like that. But so my mission today basically is to take that saw and wrap it around this set of cases and hope I don't regret it. This is a brand new Husqvarna 572 short block, and the beauty about these is they come with a new crank, new bearings, new cases, everything. So a lot of the skills that I've been showing you over the years about how to put cases together and all that, you don't have to know. And a lot of dealers don't have that. They simply don't. Kind of like the dirty little secret is there's more than a few of them that just simply don't have that skill set in their toolbox or the tools. So Husqvarna responded by providing short blocks. Now this particular saw is going to be stock and not going to make any changes at all. And unless I see something like catastrophic somewhere else, all the parts from this saw are going to go into those cases, including the cylinder, including the piston, because I haven't had the authority to do anything different. Yes, I have an Irwin brand T27. I'm using this ported cable because it's several years old, and if I don't, it'll just go to waste. Now I need to come up with a good mechanism for storing things. I've got some plastic trays around from the hospital. I don't want to work on everybody else's stuff all the time. Some once in a while I like to play. So and that is why I am willing to go into my own stock. Notice that is a fine thread, because Husqvarna on this 572 series, they opted for a little bit of robustness and reliability over weight. So little details like that are pretty much throughout the whole saw. And I appreciate it. I don't know, some people may not put a lot of stock on that, but that's one of the things I happen to like about this saw series. Yeah, they're going to have teething issues, and you know, this is a 2020 built saw, so they have their teething issues, and statistically people are going to have their problems, just what happens. But as this series of saw evolves, you watch, it's going to be one of those saw series that has a long lifespan, at least as long as gas saws are still acceptable, because the electric saws are coming. Much as we don't want them, they are. Now on stuff like this, because I want to keep the screws with the parts, I'll just oftentimes just go right from one to the other. Take it off the one, put it right on the other, even if it's a little dirty right now. You know, I'm going to be able to do on this one of the videos that I've been wanting to do for quite some time. And that's a review on how to pull a flywheel. Just like with 372 and the others, is taking the flywheel off. You really do have to use the right tools not to damage the flywheel. Take off this air baffle while I'm talking. So I just want to stop screwing around. And I think about the only dollar 20-volt tool I don't have is one of these, so I went and bought one. And they've changed over to brushless motors. Now I'm sure that makes a difference to somebody, and supposedly the idea is they last a little longer and you know, all that kind of stuff. But I'd say the only group of tools that I've had in these red boxes that didn't hold up are the drills. And the interesting thing is only the drills, when I was using them in continuous use. But like the impact drivers and stuff like that, they've worked beautifully over the years for me, especially that one I got for doing okay. That one I got for doing trailer tires and stuff like that. So where were we? I wanted to get that flywheel off, and what I think is the right way of doing it. I mean, everybody has their own opinion. But so let's continue. Get the nut off. Works, right? These are the handiest things ever. I use this one here a lot. I got a couple of them. I use case screws. Need one more. Of course, you got to center that so it's actually over the crankshaft, right? Get that snug. And really the key to all this is moderation. So once you've got that on there, snug it up. Lift the saw a little bit. Give it a tap. It'll pop right off. And that's the right way to remove a flywheel. Now the second part of this is once you get it apart, get those little lugs right back on it. Do not wait. Trust me when I tell you that, because that's a recipe for losing them almost every time. I guess I'll just get the ignition off because I'm already here. I'll just set it right on the other set of cases. Now, these wires are much, much better managed on this series of saw than older saws. And I guess the best thing to do is just let me wipe them off real quick and then set them right back on the other set of cases. Wow, they're tight. I guess now's as good a time as any to pull a cylinder, right? really nothing holding it on at this point. And there it is. And yeah, it's been run. Sure has. There's nothing wrong with that. I'll just clean off the top of that piston. I think we'll be just fine with that. Let me see what it looks like inside the... I don't want to dump all my screws out. Oh, that's beautiful. Nice and clean. That cylinder is fine. All right, let me get that handle off of there. So this is loose. Screws are out. Should just kind of pop out of there. Yeah. So basically all you got to do is take the handle and kind of turn it that way, rotate that way, pick the case right off it, and then pull the case off. And remember, the reason why we're doing this is because, check out the bearing. Let me put the light on it. That bearing spin. This is another one of those saws that had a really tight chain. Bearing didn't fail. You got to compress that little spring right there to get it out of there. So I'm going to take it off. So this is now, let me see, I need the flippy cap. Hope there's not too much oil in there. No, it's empty. Get the flippy cap right on the other case before we get any further. Pick out the oil line too while I'm at it. Set that right in the other set of cases too. I think I'm going to clean that up a little bit. Yeah, it's all right. I have one more piece to take off this set of cases. And that's this plastic. Don't forget it. What else we got? I think that's that. I think that's all it is. All right, so where was I? Oh, I was cleaning up this handle. Went and got some food. So I think the next thing I need to do is just to get the handle on this set of cases, this new set of cases. And tray as well. Get the tray on there too. Kind of hook that right in there and should just kind of go right in. Just like that. Oh, remember we had the one down there that had the hex instead? That would be this one. It goes down here. All right. So for the most part, this is on. That little piece of rubber goes across the front here, and then the other one goes right there. See it? Across the bottom. And then of course that has to capture this here on the way down. So that'll be a fun and games. You gotta pull these lines up and through. And, okay, the secret to the tray on the 572 is, see where that rubber is right here? You got to go underneath that piece right there. Make sure your ignition wire, make sure these are through the right holes, make sure but you got to slide it in underneath that. And it looks to me like this is a block between dirt coming up from underneath. I don't have it pushed all the way in, and there's a clip. When I finally make it go down, there's actually a clip on this side. There, snapped right in. Is I got to get those wires or those hoses up and into their spots on that tray. But you don't want to pierce the line, you know? There's that one. That's above. And, it's already there. Okay, so everything is set though. The hoses are there. That's set. The tray is projected underneath that bump. All I got to do is set these screws in. All right. We crank them by hand. Make sure they're neither over tightened or under tightened. All right, they're good. Now I'm ready to put the top end on, I guess, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to assemble this thing here first. And these are going to be a little bit of a pain in the neck getting the primer bulb circuit to the primer bulb because it's just not a lot of room in there. I'll just have to fight with it. And let me see if I can find my screws for the intake. And I'll do that. And then I'm going to put the piston on. You don't have to do it in any particular order, just as long as you can finally get it together. The other thing is, notice that spring goes underneath the choke. It goes like that. And then what happens is when you hit the throttle, it'll release the choke. All right, let's see if we can make this go together. Now, another piece of the puzzle is make sure you don't forget that little support ring. You don't want to do that. Clip on there, which holds things together, I think, for assembly. And I'm pretty sure Husqvarna did that because I think that's what this clip here is for, holding the assembly. And so I've got pretty much the way I like it. Drop those right in there. And that is a, oh wow, that's a high quality gasket material. So we got that ready. Let me put this over here. Let me get the piston put on. Then we will do some more assembly. What I'm hoping is I can run this against my hot rod so you can see what a HTSS does relative to a pure stock 572 without me having to run my XPG. Next, let me clean it up just a little bit. Doesn't look great, but it doesn't look bad. The rings are pretty much okay. Yeah, just a little bit. Cleans right up. Not enough on there to matter. Okay, what I am going to do is I am going to take the piston ring that has the least amount of ring gap and set that on the top ring. The one that has the most amount of ring gap on the bottom. This one goes on top, this one goes on the bottom. You got to remember that the little projections go to the bottom because you got to capture the pin, which is on the very top of the piston ring land. You know, it's a little detail, but by pulling those rings off and doing that, there's actually going to be a little bit more ring tension at first, so it'll actually run a little bit better until they sort of settle back into their diameter. So yeah, they look good, and the ring gap on those by eye are probably in the 7 to 8 thousandths. I don't know, maybe 6 thousandths range, but they're very tight, a little tighter, a lot tighter than I would have expected on a saw that has this many hours. All right, back to this. Let me get some oil on the wrist pin bearing. Put some of this red stuff on it so it doesn't start out its new life dry. And let me just get a little bit of oil before I even get started on the rings and the ring lands. Now I understand I don't have it on yet and all that, but just start it that way. And we're going to use an OEM gasket. I'm not going to use any goo. It didn't come that way, so I'm going to assume that the gaskets that are supplied by Husqvarna are designed to go without goo. I don't, with the amount of flange width that a stock 572 has, I don't think it needs a goo gasket anyway. Get the piston on. It should slide right through, right? Top heavy freaking pistons these things have. There it goes, right to the other side. Let me get the clip in there and turn it to the top. Yeah, leave it at the top. So we have both clips in. I'm going to put a little bit of oil on that one bearing. Just get some down in there. I kind of like to do it on the bearings that are the very bottom end too. I just don't see an easy way of getting oil down in there. Maybe I can let it drain down the side. It'll get some in there. Now, the other thing I want to do before I get too far into it is get the little bushings in there. If I can. Not sure I can, but I want to. Yep, there's one. Because it sure is a pain to try to get them in there when you're already got the cylinder down, you know. So I got all the screws and those bushings in there. I also want you to notice that the flange on these 5 series, that middle section is thin this way. So you really don't want to take too much material off this if you could take the machining route. And the other thing about machining these is these guys right here, if you take too much there, begin to interfere. So you have a limit on how much you can cut on these. I'm going to have to figure out how to get it to go down in. Here we go. Get this started and see if I can get this to happen and still get all these lines and stuff on without some kind of a disaster. So all right, so now we have to start thinking about how stuff is going to go down in. And before I get too crazy, I think I'm going to start with this. Get these two pieces together. There it is. That's one. And also, before I get too crazy, I'm going to get that throttle cable in. Then I'm going to peel this out of the way right here. And the fuel line has to go up into the carburetor, but I have to get this down a little further. So now the thing I have to be sure of. Yep, everything's good. Everything's good. Is line the screws up with the gasket, but they already are. I'm going to start with the back screw if I can get to start. It did. Let me make sure that these are lining up properly, and they are. Start this next back screw. And the reason I'm doing this is to make sure that the gaskets and the screws start without me cross-threading them, but also to make sure that my gasket is yep, that one started right easy. And then I'm going to get the front one here started. Gasket looks really good. And then this one. Yeah, see, that one's already somewhat tight. This one is somewhat tight. Let me run these down. See, they're going down nice and easy. Make sure I didn't strip them or anything. And then this one. Now, we got to go back and, I'm not going to tighten them up yet. Go back and make sure that my fuel line and get my fuel line on. Before I have it all the way down in. Okay, now the vent, there's a little tube it goes to. Let me set that on there. Tank vent. All right, so it's now on. So fuel line, tank vent. This tank vent has to come up through here. When you do the cylinder bolts, you got to do a cross pattern. It's pretty much standard affair with anything aluminum, anything that takes heat, any kind of a flange. So now I'm going to run this thing and then retorque the cylinder. I do that because the gas is going to relax a little bit, right? After it goes through a couple of heat cycles. I mean, you can theoretically get it right first time, but I always get like 1/8 of a turn out of it. So I'm going to take this out right here, and that'll let me get that line in. This actually, for me, is the hardest part of the whole job. I mean, I can see it right in there. But man, I'll tell you what, anymore it's hard for me to get in there. Let me pull this one up and out of the way. Get some light so I can actually see what I'm doing. See what's going on. Ah, there it is. So that's my biggest problem, is I can't see it. If I can see it, it goes on just like that. And it's no problem, you know what I'm saying? When I can't see it for crap, well then it struggles. This one goes on like this. Just like that. This goes back in its clip. And then we're basically done with this thing.